Today's Hypnosis Hypnotherapy Q&A comes from Cartagena, Colombia. It's a beautiful city. This is December 1st. Very hot here. It's gorgeous architecture. It's interesting that when I was asked where I come from, everybody asks where I come from, and I tell them British Columbia, and nobody has any clue what it is. They know Colombia, they don't know British Columbia. And they know Vancouver or Canada, that work for them, but British Columbia, no, they don't have any clue. It's it's an old city wall here. And that's the Caribbean, right over there. That's a panoramic view. I just crossed the bridge over there. A few weeks ago, I received an email from P, let's call him P. His mother came to see me for a consultation first, and he sent me an email because I asked his mother to ask him to contact me. And his presenting issue is BDD, body Dysmorphic disorder. So his question for me is how much. He said his mother had many good things to say about me, and he knew he could trust me. He would like to work with me on body dysmorphic disorder. And his question for me was, how much do you know about BDD? What's your knowledge about BDD? Well, I work with people with this disorder, so I can share with you what I know about it. There are 4 major points that I know about it. Point number 1, it seems to me that BDD always started by the later developmental age, like teenage years. Almost all of my clients I worked with, they started in their teenage years, sooner or later in the teenage years. It is, when we were children, when we were growing up, we experienced the world from inside out. We look at the world, what's this, what's that, a shining ball everywhere. And then we get into this teenage years, we start to have the sense of self. We become more self-conscious. We start to have this meanness in the world, which is quite necessary for the further development, because we need that sense of self to be in the world, to function well, to have a sense of self. And this is when we start to experience the world from outside in. Then comparison, of course, becomes part of the game. Without comparison, we don't have a standard. We don't know how to refer us being in the world. Who am I in the world? What's my status in the world to build? So at times, we start to become quite critical to our own look because of the comparison. Now, for example, I certainly remember when I was a teenage girl, how ashamed I was of my own nose, or in my own opinion at that time, the lack of nose, because the nose bridge is very flat. So I was very ashamed of it. And I remember when I was a teenage girl, everyone I met, I first would look at their nose and compare myself with their nose. And to my dismay, I never found someone, even Chinese people, who had worse nose than I. So I was seriously considering having a plastic surgery for many years throughout my teens and the 20s. It was a lack of money, lack of funds that stopped me. thankfully, I would not prefer to have a fake nose on my face today. So thankfully, I didn't have enough money to do the surgery. So for a majority of people, they experience some level of dissatisfaction with their look, and then we move on from there. Even though at times we become critical of our own look, for some sensitive people, and somehow unconsciously, that critical part of themselves is starting to take a life on its own, and they start to form identity with that flawed look of their face or their body. So that comes to the second point that I know about BDD, is that most people had this, sensitive people, they have this, they are very gentle soul. It's like they wanted to carry the weight of the world on their body or their face. They feel like they're responsible for the world just because how they look. I remember a client of mine, one day he figured, after staying home for many years without going out because he thought he was ugly, and one day he figured, if I could build my body, if I go to gym, build a strong body, even though my face is ugly, well, according to my opinion, his face is slightly above average look, but of course, he thinks he's a monster. So one day he figured he's going to go to gym, exercise 2 or 3 hours every day, so at least he would have a body that he would have confidence to go out and have a social life. And one day, he would exercise 5 a.m. where nobody's in the gym. And after gym exercise, he was walking home, walking down this street. There's a lady coming in, not even on the same side of the street, but on the other side. And then as they're getting closer, this lady starts to turn to the opposite direction. And that was it. He never wanted to do it again because that lady, he was so ugly that he would scare that lady off, according to his opinion. So they're very sensitive, gentle soul, wanting to take the responsibility of the world on their face, their body. And because of that, they wanted to almost protect others from themselves. And because of that, here comes my third point that I know about BDD, that they suffer very, very tremendously. Life becomes a constant struggle, and they cannot go out, and they cannot not go out. Some people are obsessed with a mirror. They spend hours in front of the mirror every day, and some people can't even stand the mirrors. They can't have it at home. They have no social life. They don't go out dating. Because of that, occasionally they would go out, and then they start to have something to hide from themselves because they cannot share the truth with others. So there becomes layers of other problems, and of course family members don't understand them. So there's not just the BDD they're dealing with a lot of other fears and anxiety because of that, developed out of that with years. And then of course there's the obsession. And as I say, some of them spend hours in front of mirrors. They practice that flaw part, the single flaw part of somewhere. And of course, whatever we practice, we get very good at. So they get better at flaw of their own body and face, and then it's discourage them further. Because of that, they don't go out, they don't have friends, and because they don't have friends, guess what? They're right, of course I'm ugly. So it just becomes a vicious cycle. The fourth point that I know about BDD is it can be treated. It's treatable. Hypnotherapy is one of the most effective tools to treat it because we deal with what we would call the subconscious mind. As I said earlier, the identity we take out of the flawed part of me is subconscious. So it takes time. It takes a willingness first, willingness of the self. Strangely enough, most people who have BDD, it's their family members, one of the parents or sisters or brothers, they contacted me first. But I always tell them, yeah, you can have a consultation, but I need this person who has ability to contact me. I can't work with people who are not ready and not willing. So the willingness, and it takes a little while because we have practiced BDD for many years, so it takes a while to undo this. Hypnotic regression may be necessary because each person has their own stories and their own maybe sensitizing events we call, and after through hypnotic regression we understand where it comes from. Every individual is different. Then we start to treat it. Where it comes from subconsciously, we can start creating a new outlook that is more true to nature rather than a distorted version of the self. There are also other parts of us that can rise within, meanwhile, and a therapist can help nurture that part. For example, a deep desire to connect with other people. So we can nurture that part, and we will nourish that part to build a new, healthier identity, which will set you free. As we know, whatever we practice, we get good at. So the 4 points that I know about BDD as an answer to that question from P. Thank you for asking. I look forward to working with you. You know, it's okay. You got lost momentarily in your life, in a world that you created in your mind. When you finally decide to give the real world a chance, you may find this world is much more friendlier than the world in your mind. And suddenly you will find you as an unidentified, real, ever-changing, curious you, amazingly beautiful in your own right.